Hey guys, how are you doing? Hey guys, how are you doing? All right, hello everyone. Hi guys, I'm Daddy Freeze, convener of the Free the Sheeple movement and leader of the Free Nation in Christ. I greet you and I bring glad tidings. A quick discussion today. Someone sent me a question. Let me read it to you exactly the way he sent it. I posted it earlier on my Instagram. He said, a friend sent him this and he forwarded it to me. I did operation for my boy yesterday. The thing cost me 450K. This really affected me and made me broke. Please, bro, I'm looking for 170K for drugs and dressing. I don't have any cash again. Please, any amount you can borrow me till the coming month, I will appreciate. I'm not asking you for all, but any amount. Then he said, a friend sent me this on WhatsApp for help, and I gave him my tithe and offering to go help his child. Please, did I do the right thing? Please, did I do the right thing? Let us start with a prayer so we might have Yahweh's guidance as we discuss this very, very difficult issue that is plaguing quite a few people. Father, I thank you for giving us another opportunity to gather and discuss your word as we seek your enlightenment and your grace, your wisdom and your guidance. We plead for understanding and knowledge. In Yahushua's name I pray. And all the good people in the house said a very big amen. Now here's the thing, yeah. There are two things, tithes and offering. Tithe and offering are two separate things. Tithe is a tenth of the income of your crops and your herds. Tithing was never money. It was always crops and herds, even when there was money. As a matter of fact, in the book of Deuteronomy Chapter 14, tithing was exchanged for money. If the place you were supposed to pay your tithe was far away from you, you would exchange it for money, go to the place, and then use the money to buy everything you want. Cows, goats, sheep, beer, wine, strong drink, anything you want, and you eat and drink in the presence of the Lord. Offering, on the other hand, is a totally different scenario. So, let's start by establishing what is tithing, and is tithing useful in the modern covenant, the one Christ established with his resurrection after his death on the cross. First of all, let's talk a little bit about tithing. And one of the best places is Deuteronomy Chapter 14. We're reading, oops, my phone, oh, sorry about that. I'm tired, so I'm a bit clumsy. We're reading from the New Living Translation. So kindly come with that Bible. It's one of the most explicit and easy to understand Bibles, and one of the very best translations, much better than the King James Bible, which I consider a very erroneous and heretic and totally useless Bible. Trust me, when we tell you that King James is a useless Bible, we're not joking. It's a horrible Bible. Errors. Bible has errors. King James has errors times 100. And grave errors too. So avoid using the King James Bible for your translations. It will lead you astray. If you read from verse 22, there's a heading. If you read the newer Bibles, like the New International Version or the New Living Translation, It says, you must set aside a tithe of your crops. Now, guys, don't trust me. Get your Bibles and read this along with me. Read your Bibles with me. Don't take my word for it. In fact, I'm lying. I am lying to you. Verify this from your Bible. Someone is saying, join us to celebrate the demise of the Chief of Army Staff. We don't celebrate such. Let them not celebrate your own too. That kind of question you may go. Better go on your knees and ask God for forgiveness. If you don't like somebody, must you Tabanja bitikaku ko. Ask somebody to translate that for you if you don't know Yoruba. So like I was saying, don't trust me. I'm lying to you. Check this in your own Bible. Like I said, preferably the New Living Translation. You can also use the NIV. It's also a good enough Bible. You can use, even though I don't like using it too much, you can also use the Amplified. It's not one of my favorite translations, but it's okay. If you don't have any Bible, you have Amplified, you can manage it. But the best translation, according to my understanding and after aligning it with the original scriptures, the closest is the NLT. So, let's read Deuteronomy chapter 14 from verse 22. You must set aside the tithe of your crops, 1/10 of all the crops you harvest each year. Remember, it's not crops. Bring this tithe to the designated place of worship, the place the Lord your God chooses for his name to be honored, and eat it there. The instruction with the tithe is you're supposed to eat it. This applies to the tithe of your grain, new wine, olive oil, and the firstborn males of all your flocks and herds. Doing this will teach you to always fear the Lord your God. Now, when the Lord your God blesses you with a good harvest, and the place of worship might be too far for you to bring the tithe, if so, you may sell the tithe portion. Sell the tithe. Sell it. If so, you may sell the tithe portion of your crops and herd. Put your money in a pouch. Money. Pouch. And go and give it to church? Go and give it to pastor? No. Listen to what you're supposed to do with it. And go to the place the Lord your God has chosen. When you arrive, you may use this money to buy any kind of food you want. Cattle, sheep, goats, wine, or other alcoholic drinks. Meaning, drinking alcohol was part of paying tithe at the place the Lord your God has chosen. The scriptures are very clear. It says, then feast there in the presence of the Lord your God, and celebrate with your household, and do not neglect the Levites in your town, for they will receive no allotment of land among you. At the end of every third year, bring the entire tithe of that year and store it in the nearest town. Give it to the Levites, who will receive no allotment of land among you, as well as the foreigners living among you, the orphans, the widows in your towns, so they may eat and be satisfied. So here's the instruction for the tithing. Israel in those days operated on a 7-year cycle. Year 1, you eat your tithe. Year 2, you eat your tithe. Just like year 1, you can use it to drink some nice Budweiser. You can use it to drink some Guinness, some Hennessy, some Moet. Anything your heart pleases. The scriptures are clear. Some use wine and other fermented drinks. Some use alcoholic drinks. Some use beer. Holman's Christian Bible uses the word beer. Yes, you can drink beer at the place the Lord your God has chosen with your tithe. It's scriptural. Entirely scriptural. Forget what this your olodo pastors are teaching you. They don't know book. If you follow them, you will lost. So they lost. They will lost you. Matthew chapter 23, verse 13 and 15. They say they sit at the door of heaven. They will not enter, and they will not allow those who want to enter. Watch out for them. Read, like I said, don't trust me. Read Deuteronomy 14, 22 all the way down to 28. No, you're supposed to eat your tithe every year. First year, eat your tithe. Sorry, let me explain to you properly. First year, you eat your tithe and use your tithe to buy beer, wine, Hennessy, anything you like. Second year, you do the same thing. Eat your tithe, use it to buy beer, wine, Hennessy, Moe, anything. The third year is now the year of the tithe. You're supposed to take your tithe on the third year and give all of it to be shared by you. You're not supposed to give it to the Levi to share. Let's read this together. Let's read verse 28. It's very, very important. It says, at the end of the third year, at the end of every third year, bring the entire tithe of that year's harvest and store it in the next town. Now it says, give it to the Levites who will receive no allotment of land among you, as well as to the foreigners, the orphans, and the widows in your town, so they may eat and be satisfied. You're not supposed to give all to the Levites. You're supposed to share it between the foreigners, Levites, widows, and orphans. And it's supposed to be stored in the nearest town. That is for the third year. The fourth year, you go back to the cycle again. You eat your tithe and use it to drink Shayo, Paraga, Hennessy, Budweiser, Heineken, Guinness, Radler, anything that comes to your mind. That's what you do on the fourth year again. On the fifth year, you do the same thing. On the sixth year, you now take it again and store it in the town and give it to, because the sixth year is another, first of all, we have Israel operated on a 7-year cycle. Now, in that 7-year cycle, there are 2 3-year cycles. Year 1, 2, 3, 3 years. Third year, tithe goes to be stored in the nearest town and be shared among everybody. Fourth, fifth, sixth year, another 3rd-year cycle. Tithe again is to be stored in with everybody. Now, on the 7th year, the land lies fallow, they do not work. So on the 8th year again, another cycle begins. Year 1, you eat your tithe, use it to buy shayo, drink in the place the Lord your God has chosen. Number 9 is now the 2nd year, you do again. The 3rd year, and now another 3-year cycle has begun. The 3rd year now, you put your tithe in the storehouse. All like that up until so every 7 years, the 7th year is the year where they don't touch the land. Now, in modern day Christianity, first of all, the Lord does not choose where his name is to be worshipped every year. It does not exist anymore. Those were things of the old covenant. So listen to this ignorant person, Rose Egberko Godwin. Daddy Freeze, please do what pleases you. I will not give it to those fake pastors. Okay, sorry, you are not ignorant. Don't give it. There's nowhere in scripture where tithing was transferred from the widows, orphans, strangers, foreigners, and Levites to pastor or to church. May they not do you GBT. There is nowhere in scripture. Secondly, in our new covenant, there is no time God chooses his name to be worshipped somewhere. It does not exist. Your church is not the house of God. I want you to read Acts chapter 7 verse 48 when Stephen was addressing the council. And Acts chapter 17 verse 24 when Apostle Saul, I like to call him Saul because his name never changed to Paul. He was born Saul and Paul. That's another lie they've lied to you for many years. He didn't become Paul. His Hebrew name was Saul and his Roman name was Paul from birth. Now, when Apostle Saul was addressing the men in Athens, the two of them, Stephen in Acts chapter 7 and Saul in Acts chapter 17, they said the same thing. They said, God does not live in buildings built by human hands. God does not live in temples built by human hands. So, the church building is not the house of God. Don't get it wrong. You can call it the house of prayer. You can call it the house of meeting. You can call it the house of sermon. You can call it the house of motivation. You can call it anything you like, but don't call it the house of God. Because calling it the house of God is an insult to God. Because God doesn't live in buildings or temples created with human hands. Someone said, not even the church, especially the church building. Go and read these scriptures I'm giving you. Go. I don't have time. I'm tired. I would have said we sit down, we read it together. I will repeat them again. Acts chapter 7 verse 48 and Acts chapter 17 verse 24. So your church building, even if it's 100,000 seater joke, it's not the house of God. It's your pastor's house. Ask your pastor to let him show you the name on the deed, whether you will see Yahweh there. Unless you see Yahweh. They say who get the building, they say El Shaddai. If you don't see, if you ask your pastor, you see is it that your pastor that owns the building? Or your pastor's private company that owns the building? At best is the church that owns the building. It is not God's house. God named the deed. You know, when they say something at your house, what does it mean? It means your name is on the property. So, the church is not the house of God. God doesn't live there. Let me tell you something. Did you not see your pastor saying he wants to run away and do plan B? If he's in the house of God, do you think you stand in God's house and somebody come and shoot you inside God's house? No, it's not the house of God. It's a building built with brick and mortar. So when they are coming, me I've gone, me and my wife and my family, we've run. That's not the house. Do you think you can go into God's house? Go and ask the Philistines what happened when they carried the Ark of the Covenant. Only them use their hand, carry and come return. Say, make una not vex. So you think you can carry the house of God or something that has God's name on it? It's not the house of God. It's a building that is owned by your pastor. Let me tell you, very soon, all these your churches, they will soon start collecting Bitcoin and Dogecoin and all those things as tithe and offering. Because they know no book, you two know. All of them are jam on our head together, they go, they dupe on ourselves. So, there is nowhere in the new covenant where God used to choose everything. That 3-year cycle has ended. And everything. Now, I want you all to go with me to Galatians Chapter 2. Let's read from 11. Galatians Chapter 2 verse 11. Once again, I'm reading from the New Living Translation. Let's read this together. Now, you need to understand, many of you don't have any scriptural depth at all. So you all just think that, okay, everything. There were 3 main factions after Christ left us and ascended to heaven. There was the James faction. James believed that faith alone cannot save you. You need to mix faith with works and to an extent the law. James couldn't understand why you leave things like circumcision out of the doctrine. Saul, on the other hand, did not believe that you needed circumcision at all. He believed that you were saved by faith alone. Peter, on the other hand, leaned towards Paul or Saul, but a lot of the times when James was there, he would now either stay neutral or lean towards James. So there was a lot of politics involved in the early church. I'm just trying to give you some background so you understand what Galatians chapter 2 from verse 11 says. It says, but when Peter came to Antioch, I had to oppose him to his face, for what he did was very wrong. When he first arrived, he ate with the Gentile believers who were not circumcised. But afterwards, when some friends of James came, Peter wouldn't eat with the Gentiles anymore. He was afraid of criticism from these people who insisted on the necessity of circumcision. So James' people insisted on the necessity of circumcision. Now, if you read from verse 13, now Paul complained that as a result, other Jewish believers followed Peter's hypocrisy, and even Barnabas was led astray by their hypocrisy. Then verse 14 says, when I saw that they were not following the truth of the gospel message. Let's discuss this. The truth of the gospel message. What is the truth of the gospel message? When I saw they were not following the truth of the gospel message, I said to Peter in front of all the others, since you, a Jew by birth, have discarded the Jewish laws and are living like a Gentile, why are you now trying to make these Gentiles follow the Jewish traditions? Tithing is a Jewish law. Let me explain this to you clearly. Hebrews chapter 7 verse 5. Let's read it together. Verify all these things I'm reading to you. I have it in my head. You don't need to write it down. Hebrews chapter 7 verse 5. Now the law of Moses required that the priests who are descendants of Levi must collect a tithe from the rest of the people of Israel, who are also descendants of Abraham. So the law is what required people to pay tithe. If you also verify this from Matthew 23, please, if you can go with me to Matthew 23. Verse 23. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are careful to tithe even the tiniest income from your herb gardens, but you ignore the more important aspects of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. Then Christ goes on to say, you should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the more important things. Oh wow, we lost YouTube. Oops. YouTube blanked out. Oh goodness, how sad. YouTube blanked out. Alright, so guys, permit me. Let me just relaunch YouTube on another device. Even though the other one is still hanging. Sorry guys, I'm sorry. We lost the YouTube feed, and oh my goodness, that must have fallen. So okay, so we're back right now. Forgive me, I don't want them to lose out on this. Okay, that's good. So forgive me guys, I know this is very distracting. So welcome back. I'm sorry, Facebook people. So let's go again to Matthew 23 verse 23. It says, what sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you hypocrites, for you are careful to tithe even from the tiniest income from your herb gardens, but you ignore the more important aspects of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. You should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the more important things. Now, who was Christ talking to? He was talking to the scribes and Pharisees, who up until today dominate Israel. Odimuko is now quoting Hebrews chapter 7 verse 8. Furthermore, here in the Levitical priesthood, tithes are received by men who are subject to death, while in the case of Melchizedek, they are received by one who is testy, who is who is testified that he lives perpetually. Very good. I want you to reference you back to Genesis chapter 14 from verse 20. That is where Melchizedek, from about verse 18, that's where Melchizedek collected tithe from Abraham. Let me ask you something. First of all, Abraham did not pay tithe from his salary. Second of all, Abraham did not pay tithe from his possessions. Third of all, Abraham was coming from the slaughter of the kings. He went to war, a literal war, where people lost their lives. What he recovered from the war is what he gave Melchizedek a tithe of, and he only did it once. Now let me explain how he did it. He gave 10% to Melchizedek. And when the king of Sodom came to him and said, look, you can keep everything you took, but just free my men, Abraham swore to him. He said, I will not take a sandal tongue nor a thread from you, so you will not wake up tomorrow morning and say you are the one that made Abraham rich. So Abraham returned the 90% back to the king of Sodom where he took it from. I want to ask you, that your salary that you are tithing, that you are tithing monthly and you are saying you are tithing it according to the covenant of Melchizedek. Did Abraham tithe monthly? Did he tithe yearly? Did he even tithe every 10 years? He did something once from war. Are you at war? Don't worry. Let Nigeria get to war first, then you can start tithing from the spoils of war. Thirdly, when you pay this your tithe, 10% to your Melchizedek. By the way, Melchizedek had no beginning and no end. Your pastors have beginning. We know their birth. And they die. That's their end. So no Nigerian pastor qualifies to be Melchizedek. The Christ himself that qualified to be Melchizedek. Please, where did he collect the title? And Christ is superior in contract to Melchizedek because he signed our blood covenant that brought us into the fold of God. We are Gentiles, we're not Jews. We were not qualified to worship the God of Abraham until the sacrifice. And from the sacrifice and onwards, Christ never collected tithe and never instructed his disciples to collect tithe. Who was the one collecting the tithe? It was the Hebrews, according to the law of Moses. And where is the law of Moses? From the book of Deuteronomy. So if you say you want to tithe like Melchizedek, return the 90% to your office and give the 10% to Melchizedek. Who is Melchizedek? Your pastor. You did it, you got yourself. So in Matthew 23, Christ was talking to the scribes and Pharisees. He said they should tithe. Were they tithing to pastors? Were they tithing to church? They were tithing to the Levitical priesthood. And tithe had an order. I've explained the order to you. First year you eat it. Second year you eat it. Third year you give it to the widow. That's how they used to tithe. And once again, what was the tithe they were talking about? The income from your herb gardens. Tithe was never money. It was always animals or crops. Everything I've told you today, verify it. Let me now take you a little step further. Going back to Galatians Chapter 2. How long have I been on? I want to time myself. I don't want to, okay. I'm doing max another 10 minutes, so this better be quick. Galatians Chapter 2. Back to verse 11 to 17. Maybe I'm going to read from 14 because I've read 11 earlier on. Just go back to the video if you can't find it. Let me read from 14. He said, when I saw that they were not following the truth of the gospel message, I said to Peter in front of all the others, since you, a Jew by birth, have discarded the Jewish laws and are living like a Gentile, why are you now trying to make these Gentiles follow the Jewish traditions? So, Paul and Peter had discarded the Jewish laws. Matthew chapter 23 verse 23 happened when Christ was alive, before he died on the cross and resurrected. The new covenant had not come into place in Matthew 23. By the time Paul and Peter and James started preaching, they had discarded the Jewish laws. Hebrews chapter 7 verse 5. Hebrews chapter 5 verse 7, I beg your pardon. It says, tithing is the law. Matthew 23. Tithing is your law, is the law of Moses. They had abandoned the law 2,000 years ago. That's why you obeying the law now. Something the disciples, your first pastors, has abandoned 2,000 years ago. Why you resurrect? And there is a price for the resurrection. Continue reading with me. Read verse 17. It says, but suppose, read it, New Living Translation. I want you to read this. Read this, all of you, all of you. But suppose we seek to be made right with God through faith in Christ, and then we are found guilty because we have abandoned the law. Will that mean Christ has led us into sin? Absolutely not. Rather, I am a sinner if I rebuild the old system of law I already tore down. It is a sin to pay tithe. Tithing is the law. Regular tithing is the law. That one-off tithing to Melchizedek does not exist for Christians. And let me explain something to you. You need to understand the symphony and synchrony of the Bible. Genesis chapter 14 was when Abraham met Melchizedek. Genesis chapter 16 was when Abraham had Ishmael, his first son. And then the covenant for Christianity did not happen until Genesis 17, before he had Isaac. So the covenant for Christianity did not start till just before Isaac was born. And all these things are considered sinful if you resurrect them, because they're gone. Someone is saying, look at this, Bethel. Before I block him, Bethel or Shidima, or God, give your tithe to whatsoever and stop making noise. You are disturbing us. What are you doing on my feed? Listen, I will never come and disturb you. You that have the IQ of a day-old mouse, I will disturb you. Do you have any capacity for understanding that I can disturb you? You are coming to my page, you are disturbing us. What are you doing on my page? Listen, my page is not for bovines, it's not for herbivores, it's not for Blatodians. Please, Bethel, the Blatodian, leave my page. Let me block him. Another ignorant dingbat is saying, is it my money, your money that they tithe? It's not my money, but it's your silliness. It's your buffoonery that you are tithing. Something that is a sin. I'm explaining it to you that is a sin with Bible. You still want to go and give money to, make I not call them names. And they tell you, say it is a sin. Read Galatians Chapter 2 verse 17 and 18. No, this thing you are doing is a sin. And it's not only a sin, it is even a curse. Read Galatians Chapter 3 verse 10. How can you just sit down and be packing curse on your head? They use foolishness, do you? If you're not foolish, you go die. You come here, they fight person when they save you from sin. They save you from curse. Read Galatians Chapter 3 verse 10. But who depends on the law to make them right with God are under his curse. Tithing is, somebody said, is a choice. It is not a choice. It's not your choice to sin. God does not want you to sin. God does not want you to be cursed. You paying this tithe, you are putting a curse on your head. And let me explain it to you. Go with me to Nehemiah chapter 10. Let me show you why it is a curse. Nehemiah chapter 10. Go and read Nehemiah chapter 10. Let me show you where to read it from. Read it from verse 28 till you understand the curse. Then the rest of the people, the priests, the Levites, the gatekeepers, the singers, temple servants, and all who had separated themselves from the pagan people of the land in order to obey the law of God. There are 613 laws of Moses. The people separated themselves from pagans to obey these laws. If you read from verse 29, it says, join their leaders and bound themselves with an oath. They swore a curse on themselves if they fail to obey the law of God as issued by his servant Moses. Deuteronomy 14, where Tithe is from the book of Moses. They solemnly promise to carefully follow all the commands, regulations, and decree of the Lord our God. There are 613, including stoning virgin. You no be virgin, they never stone you, and you won't pay tithe. Now, mumu, they worry you. Go and read about the 613 laws of Moses and see how you can never, ever obey 10% of it. You cannot wear clothes with two material. Those are the laws. Before you give every offering, you must put salt on it. You dey put salt for the ATM where they use do offering. Mumu. Go and read the 613 laws of Moses. Spend time studying it so you understand what kind of curse you are giving yourself. You cannot eat catfish. You cannot eat snail. You cannot eat shrimp. Now listen to the curse. So you know the curse you are bringing on your head each time you go and pay this your silly tithe. It says from verse 30. It says, we promise not to let our daughters marry the pagan people of the land and not to let our sons marry their daughters. We also promise that the people of the land should bring any merchandise or grain to be sold on the Sabbath or on any other holy day. We refuse to buy it. Every 7th year, we will let our land rest. Una, they let your land rest every 7 years. And we will cancel all debts owed to us. You they cancel debts. In addition, we promise to obey the commandments to pay the annual temple tax of 1/8 of an ounce of silver for the care of the temple of our God. This will provide the bread for the presents and the regular grain offering and burnt offerings, for the offerings on the Sabbaths, the new moon celebrations, the annual festivals, and for the holy offerings and for the sin offerings to make atonements for Israel. It will provide for everything necessary for the work of the temple of our God. We have cast our sacred lot to determine when at the regular times each year, the families of the priests, Levites, and common people should bring wood to God's temple to be burned on the altar of God, as written in the law. 35. We promise to bring the first part of every year's harvest to the temple year after year, whether it be a crop from the soil or from our fruit trees. We agree to give God our oldest sons and firstborns of all our herds and flock as prescribed in the law. We will present to the priests who minister in the temple of our God, and we will store the produce in the storehouse of the temple of our God. Now it goes on to say in verse 38, a priest descendant of Aaron will be with the Levites as they receive these tithes. Now I want you to see where they put the curse on themselves. Read verse 29. Join their leaders and bound themselves with an oath. They swore a curse on themselves if they failed to obey the law of God as issued by his servant Moses. They solemnly promised to be careful to follow all the commandments, regulations, and decrees of the Lord. So they gathered together and swore a curse on themselves that if they don't obey all the 613 laws of God, anything that wants to happen should happen to them. You now pick only one law, tithe. And the scriptures are clear. Go and read Galatians Chapter 5 from verse 1 to 4. Galatians Chapter 5, 1 to 4. From the New Living Translation. For Christ has truly set you free. Make sure you stay free and don't get tied up again in slavery to the law. The law is sin, Galatians Chapter 2. The law is a curse, Galatians Chapter 3. And the law is slavery, Galatians Chapter 5. Listen, I, Paul, tell you this. If you're counting on circumcision to make you right with God, then Christ will be of no benefit to you. I say it again. if you are circumcised, you must obey every regulation in the whole law of Moses, unless there's a curse on you. For if you're trying to make yourselves right with God by keeping the law, you have been cut off from Christ and you have fallen from God's grace. So when you're trying to obey the law, what you are doing is you are cutting yourself off from Christ. You are falling from God's grace. You are putting a curse on yourself. You are tying yourself up with a yoke of slavery. And you are committing sin. You are doing these things to yourself out of ignorance, and it's not your fault. Hosea chapter 4 verse 6 tells you, my people perish for lack of knowledge. I am here teaching you knowledge. Somebody is saying, let me pay if I want to pay. It's like me allowing you to fall into a pit of sulfur because you want to fall into a pit. Wake up. They lied to you. Your tithe has done nothing for you except make you poorer and dumber. Because you're so dumb, you see the truth and you reject the truth. And Christ said in John chapter 8, know the truth and it will set you free. Lies will not what will set you free. Pastor or church is not what is the truth that will set you free. I am showing you the truth and you are rejecting it simply because you want to continue sinning, collecting curse, being a slave, and falling from the grace of God. So there is no space for tithing in the covenant. Not at all. It's nothing but a curse upon you. Stop it. Stop it. How can you all be paying tithe and you believe your tithe is working for you? With the way Nigeria is paying tithe, they say Malachi chapter 3 verse 8 to 10, God will open the window of heaven. The level of tithe you have paid, God is not supposed to open the window of heaven. You are supposed to be with God on the balcony of heaven. Meanwhile, now poverty wicked pass. Una no get any love. Go and read Malachi chapter 3 verse 11 and 12. Verse 12 says, your nation is going to be called blessed by all other nations. Who is calling Nigeria blessed? Who? People that are laughing at us and praying that we don't have any crisis, so we don't bring our refugee problem and come and give them. Those are the people looking at us as blessed. What's the blessing? Today, did one guy in the military not die? Today, what works in your blessed country except church? We have some of the biggest church auditoriums in the world and some of the poorest people and some of the world's lowest life expectancy rate. Your life expectancy rate is 54 years compared to Japan's 82 years or Canada's 83. Samuel Ajibola, low IQ individual. This priest is really cursed. I'm telling you the truth and I'm cursed. I mean, are you there? Don't curse. God. Who do you this? If to say you they hawk mumu, you for be billionaire because the mumu where you get, you know if you exhaust them till you die. In fact, Nigeria suppose build refinery of mumu, put them for your head, they refine your mumu, they sell them abroad because your mumu get grade. As you dey like this, you know if you go airport because the breeze wey dey inside your head fit make aeroplane crash. You dey here they talk say I dey cursed and they show you truth. Make you change the soap wey they take bath. Go river tomorrow morning. Go change the soap wey they take bath for river. You know if you bath for bathroom make you clean again because you don't move finish. And after that, make I not see for this my life again. Because what I will tell you next time, you don't go like yourself. I cannot be preaching the word of God and coming here and distracting us. Can you bring 10% of your income and give to the poor? Of course. You can give to the poor. Give to the poor. The offering in the new covenant, he was always to the poor. Go and read Acts chapter 10. God sent an angel to Cornelius when Cornelius was given to the poor. All this while, wait, don't they give money to pastor? How many angels God sent give you? How many angels God sent give you? Go and read Acts chapter 10 and see what God did to Cornelius. So please, now Your offering, I said I'm not going to pass 10 minutes, I'm not going to read Bible again, because people, I'll read, I'll show you, people will say, come and be talking nonsense. The offering, Acts chapter 4, if you read from verse 31 all the way down, it was meant to the needy. They would sell their houses, sell their lands, and come and give the apostles, and the apostles would distribute to everyone who had need. The apostles were not using it to buy an aeroplane, they were not using it to rent big house, they were not using it to train their children to go to school abroad. They were using it to help those who had need. Now, another thing is you can't give what you don't have. The instructions of Paul are very clear. Don't give in such a way that you harm yourself. Always give in love. Your friend has a sick child. Why do you want to go and give a pastor who built 100,000 seater church when your friend is hungry? Your friend's child has to have an operation and you want to go and dash pastor money? Look at Samuel Ajibola. He say he pity me. You wey mumu dey write letter to every day. Baba, you get the way you go waka, they go catch you, put inside aquarium, they study your mumu. You be specimen. Oh yeah? Come and be going. I don't want to see you here again. Someone said they became cursed after agreeing to keep all, but went against the agreement. God bless you. 613 laws. You think by keeping tithe, you are go better go and keep all of you. First of all of you will be virgin where they pay tithe. Make una go collect stone first. All of you where they walk. All of you where they walk on Saturday. That's the Sabbath day. Sabbath day is not any Sunday. Make anybody no lie, mumu lie give you. Someone said, interpret this. I will not give anything to God that will not cause me something. Now, mumu, they worry who they teach you, and now, mumu, they worry if you answer that nonsense. Those who had gave, Acts chapter 4, those who didn't have received. If you are poor, you're supposed to go to church to receive, but mumu no let you see road. Look at what this guy is saying. Please, please, please. I think I'm going to block this guy because he's really, but you said everyone. He's not a Nigerian. Why should I believe he's right? Listen, the Bible is here for you to understand. If you choose to understand it in a wrong way, please, I think I'm blocking this guy because I can tolerate people like the other guy who just come and throw insults and you know they are ignorant. But people like this who are actually chatting crap. Rain up mixes. I'm blocking you. Let me take him off this feed. We shall continue to pay our tithes and offerings. Someone said, we are tired of all this talk. E.M. Jonah, if you are tired, let me block you. Don't need to come here and say you are tired. Let me block you. If you see the way the hunger, they worry the guy, just go and page. The church will take over the world. Una church where they go still use do my nightclub. Una church where they go still do. I give your churches 10 years in Nigeria, mark my word, they will all turn to business centers and nightclubs. Ain't nobody gonna go there in the next 10 years. Do you pray for Nigeria to be in this state of delusion and illusion in 10 more years? What do you say about giving to pastors or missionary for the work of God? There's nothing wrong, you see. You can support the work of God. You can support the church. Luke chapter 8 verse 1 to 3, Christ's ministry was supported. Peter and all the disciples except Saul and Barnabas were taken care of by the church down to their wives. There's nothing wrong with you supporting the church. But it is not a covenant. If you support the church, God will not bless you and give you motor. God will not bless you and give you car. It's something you do for the propagation of the gospel. So I think I've done. I didn't plan to stay this long. Let me round it all off. So someone said their pastor told them to keep attacking me. Let them keep attacking me. Last. Now pastor God vex they touch steady. Someone said, who says he said he didn't deserve an apology from me? You deserve an apology from me? For what? Don't carry that nonsense and come here. So thank you, all of you. Study these scriptures. Let them stop lying to you. Let them stop lying to you. They lie to you. They lie to your papa, lie to your mama, lie to your great-grandfather. Can't they lie to you? You don't feel wake up. Did they open your head at birth and remove what was inside and put sawdust? Eh? I must pay my tithe. Let God deliver you from this curse and this sin and this foolishness and this slavery that you call tithing. All right, I'm done. Igeju, Jacob, you are asking a question. What's your question? Ask it quickly. What about payment of first fruit? Of course not. Well, do you know what first fruit is? Do you have a farm? You think first fruit was salary? Please. That was even nonsense. And it's still part of the law. First fruit is still part of the law. It still carries the curse of tithing. It still carries all the sin and all the things of. So please leave all those sinful behaviors. Someone said the church has been there before you were born and will remain after you leave. If you want to have a nightclub, go ahead. Allow people to do what works for them, just like they have nightclubs abroad that were former churches. Just be watching. You will say, I warned you. You will say, I warned you, Victor Enyang. Victor Enyang. They use Mumu, do you? Eh? In fact, change your name to Victor Mumu Enang. Now you be that. Small sense like this, they know if you find. Someone said, can I bring my tithe to the church for everyone to read and enjoy? No, sir. Whether you bring it or you pay it is still a curse because it's from the old law that you are not obeying. All of you that are talking, where your wives virgins, if they are not, bring them, oh, stone them, oh. Bring them, oh, stone them, oh, because if they commit sin. Can you please explain to me Matthew 23:23? I've explained it over and over again. Christ was talking to the scribes and the Pharisees who were paying tithe to the Levites. You need to understand that that was the old covenant. The new covenant was not established until after the death and resurrection of Christ. Now, after the death and resurrection of Christ, remember Christ came and he ate fish. Why didn't he collect tithe then? Show me a biblical example of where Paul, Peter, Barnabas, John, James, Philip, show me where they collected tithe. Christ was talking to the scribes and Pharisees who were paying tithe to Levites. They were putting it in the temple, old law. No Christian ever paid tithe in the Bible, ever. No Gentile ever paid tithe, ever. I've explained it to you. If a Christian pick tithing and is faithful to it, is such also attracting a curse. Babala curse. You see, if you read Nehemiah Chapter 10, the Jews stood up and cursed themselves. So when you pay tithe, let me tell you, when you pay tithe, you must not eat catfish. You must stone your non-virgins. You must do all the things that are in the law according to the law. If you miss one of them, you are cursed. So leave it. If you want to support your church, support your church. But let me tell you, it's impossible to support your church with 10% monthly. Some months you make more than that, some months you make less than that, some months you don't make any to be able to give your church at all. It is wicked for a church to put you on a retainership like it's DSTV that you have to be renewing your subscription every month. Wake up, guys. That's not Christianity. That's slavery. Someone said, "You need." I'm sorry if my mouth is sharp. I'm sorry, but these people will not agree. They will come and be attacking you. Who is this Obiake? Wait. Obiake Okeke. Who are you talking to? Are you talking to me? Just answer me before I end this feed. Is it me you are talking to? Just, if you are a man, answer me. So I go know as I go take handle you. I know, say after this, you know, we'll get mine to talk again. So thank you, everyone. Please, guys, you cannot give your tithe to a church because tithing does not exist in the new covenant. If it existed, Christ will have collected it, or will have given us a clear instruction on when we should pay to the disciples. A certain pastor always tells us that we have to pay our tithe in a particular church. Listen, paying your tithe is a sin, let alone in a particular church. You insulted me and still expect respect from me. No, I don't respect. Let me just block you so you can enjoy your block. Oh, Becky, this is your block. Oh, enjoy them. It go sweet you well. Watch this video from the beginning. Share it with your friends. Go and read all of the Bible verses I quoted. Just write them up. Dedicate them. Please. There is blessing when you give to the poor. There is no blessing in tithing, no. The people that are blessed by tithing are the ones eating the tithe, oh. You say, if you pay tithe, sorry guys, light just went. In my estate, don't worry. The light is 24 hours. They will just switch over the power supply. Just be patient. Thank you very much. All right, I've got to go. I'll be back tomorrow and I'll be taking your questions and I'll be giving you your answers. I love you all. Take care.